Hi there, John Wilkinson again and History Made Easier again. Last year I was working on the Spanish Civil War, doing a fair bit of work on the Spanish Civil War, and this year I've been working on the Russian Civil War. So it comes as no great shock, I guess, that I've been doing some thinking about where these wars compare and where they differ from each other. And I think they compare in their context, in their causes, and in their outcomes. So let's take a look at my current thinking on this. If we're looking at the context to both these civil wars, there is a lot in common. Both countries were essentially backward in nature. They were overwhelmingly peasant-based agricultural economies with little industry. And they both had strong, powerful churches that were a major influence on their societies. The Russian Orthodox Church in Russia, surprising that, and the Catholic Church in Spain. So there's a lot of common ground there on the context, but there are some important differences. The Russian Civil War takes place still with the backdrop of World War I, and in particular with the Brest-Litovsk Treaty that the Bolsheviks signed with the Germans that really upset the nationalists in Russia. And in Spain we have, as an important backdrop, I think, the loss of empire. At first it kind of knocked the wind out of the sails of the right, but then they recover from that and they are determined to make Spain a power to be respected again. And so I think in that context, a fair bit of common ground with some differences on the edges, if you like. If we look at the causes, well, both are left-wing governments in power at the time the war breaks out. But we have important differences here. The Bolsheviks had seized power themselves by revolution, though they did take power away from an unelected government. The provisional government was not elected. Whereas in Spain, the government, the left-wing government, had been elected. So there is an important difference there, I think. The causes of the war for both wars are overwhelmingly ideological. Left-wing governments in power, right-wing governments trying to overthrow them. Of course, it's ideologically based. And there were also some similarities amongst the policies being applied by those left-wing governments. Land reform, for one, and weakening of the powerful churches was another. Another factor there was nationalism. In Russia we have the likes of the Ukraine wanting much greater autonomy from the Russian state, and in Spain we have the Basques and the Catalonians themselves wanting much more autonomy from Madrid. There is, I think, here a big difference though. In Russia, with the Bolshevik government, we have the dictatorship of the proletariat being put in place, an authoritarian regime that's going to wage class warfare on its class enemies. Whereas in Spain, we might have a left-wing government, and it was quite left-wing, but it is a democratically elected government, and it is seeking to defend democracy. The right is attacking democracy. So I think that is a major difference between the two. And then if we look at the outcome of the two wars, well, on one hand, they are very, very similar, but on the other hand, they couldn't be more different. And I will explain. In Russia, the left wins, and we will get the dictatorship of the proletariat. In Spain, the right wins, but it wins only with an awful lot of help from fascist Italy and fascist Germany. And both countries end up under dictatorships. It's not long in Russia before we get Stalin in power, and we immediately get Franco in power in Spain. So, although I'm sure I've missed quite a few important things out, I think I've given you a useful beginning, at least, to looking at where the Russian Civil War and Spanish Civil War compare, and where they have quite profound differences. And as you might face that kind of question in your exam, I think this would be useful for you. I certainly hope so. But for now, as always, I thank you for listening, and I remind you to check out my History Made Easier website. Cheers.